Hello and welcome to Do It Yourself PhatDog. I am WalkmanExe, voice of Krusty in Log Horizon Abridged, and today I am going to be trying to build a soundproofing booth using standard materials that I could get at my local hardware store, as well as just some egg carton foam that I got at Walmart. You can get it for the cheap. It's pretty much used just for padding mattresses, but you can also use it for soundproofing, because if you get the right dimensions, you can get it about 1 inch, 2 inch thick, which will muffle down the sound, similar to acoustic foam, which you can buy at guitar stores, regular old stores, as well as a hardware store, depending on where you're going. Today, we're going to go ahead and be covering just assembly. So what I've got here is I've got my boards. So these right here are my spare boards. I'm basically going to be using them as reinforcement, as well as just generally anything else that I require. They're cut to about an 8 foot length, 1 foot width, and as you can see, they're made of particle board. I did go for that just because I'm more familiar with it. You can use either particle board or plywood if you're on a budget. Particle board will be cheaper, but that's just because it's mainly just composite wood, and you are going to want to be careful when you make it, when you go ahead and build your stuff, because you'll have to pre-drill your holes before you go ahead and pop screws in, because if you don't, it's going to crack and splinter this wood, which is going to make your booth unstable. Next up, as I've been tapping it, sorry, I'm not familiar with selfie cam, this is going to be like your main boards that are going to form the walls and the backboard where you can store your mic stand, your laptop if you're using it inside the booth. Just anything that you're using to record, you can build shelves onto it. I cut this one to the dimensions of about 3 foot width, 7 foot length. But that's just because I'm kind of a big guy. I'm tall and wide, so kind of stuck in that one. Next up, because I'm using particle board, I am wanting to make sure that this is super structurally sound. I went ahead and also grabbed some studs. These are my 2x4 studs. And I cut these to about 7 foot length, just because I want to make sure that they line up well with my booth. They're mainly going to be forming the reinforcements in the corners. As well, I'm going to use any spare pieces that I've cut off to serve as reinforcement, so that when I mount my stands, they can be mounted on the back to add a little extra support and make sure that I can do it. Because unfortunately, my room has baseboards on the floor, which means that I can't mount my booth directly onto my wall. So I'm going to have to try my best to just build it away from the wall and make sure that it's as structurally sound as possible so that it holds together. Last and certainly not least, we've got the final boards, which are going to be serving as my roof. These I'm not going to screw in. I am going to nail them in the top, because I don't expect to be flailing my hands wildly about like a madman when I record. And these little bad boys are cut to about 3 foot length, 1 foot width, so that I can just go ahead and tap them in on the top of my main boards and make sure that they are structurally reinforced. The tools you're going to need for this job are, you're going to want a power drill. If you only have a screwdriver, it is going to take longer, but you can do it. I just recommend a power drill, because if you're, like I said, using particle board, you're going to want to pre-drill your holes. Next up, I recommend having a saw. I've got 3. I've got a jigsaw, a circular saw, and a handsaw. Not a big fan of the handsaw, but it allows me to get the cuts I want with the consistency and length that I want, and as close as exacting measurements as I can. So last but certainly not least, you're going to want screws and nails. If you would prefer to just do that with screws, you are welcome to. I'm just going to be using nails for my roof just because it seems easier for me to do that. And the last thing you're going to need, as far as getting your foam to stick, I would recommend adhesive. You can get spray-on adhesive, or you could, if you've got glue gun or super glue, you can use those as well. With super glue, you're going to want to be very, very, very careful, because if you mess up with your foam, there's no takesies backsies. You're kind of stuck with where it is now. It lives there. And that's pretty much all you're going to need. We're going to go ahead and pick up with the assembly next. So let's go ahead and hop on over to that. Okay, so, part two. I've got all my pieces upstairs, waiting for assembly. And so down here is where I'm assembling the sideboards with the egg crate foam that I had bought earlier. So I initially was planning on using spray-on adhesive, but due to the heat, it's not getting the amount of stick that I wanted. But luckily, easy problem to solve when you have staple gun. So all you gotta do really is you're gonna want to go along the edges. So I start here at the corners and then work my way up, providing stability along the way. Got a staple here, got a staple here, got one here. And I hit the other side, about in the same junction. One here, one here. Had a mishap with one there. Then we got one here. And once that's all anchored down, you've got your first plate ready. And then we'll just go ahead and skip past the next because it's generally the same assembly. May throw in a few bits of staple footage just because of that satisfying ka-kink sound. One thing I do want y'all to make sure of is that if you're putting a roof on your booth, which I do recommend because you want to make sure that the top area above your mic is absolutely soundproofed as well as the others, leave yourself a little bit of room, because once you get that roof on, you're going to need a little bit of space to slap in the last bits of your foam. And so, we've got our first board assembled. Go ahead and get that upstairs and get the next board a-going. Be back in the next bit. Hey, so part 3. Gonna go ahead and preface it. Couldn't record me doing work on this as a B-roll because, well, drills required both hands if you want to get accurate installation, and especially if you want to get your screws just spaced where you want them to. Can't really record that. So what we did is we took our main plank from part 1. So here's the final product. Yay! Just missing a roof. So the main board we have fixed our studs to, and I'll go ahead and remove this piece of foam right here behind my mic, so I can show you all what I did. So right about here, and right about here, get a little closer on that. Right about there. We've affixed the backboard to the studs in the wall, and popped in our little shelf here, attaching that to the studs as well. So our 1x3 cut that I was planning on using for the roof actually ended up getting used for this shelf, because after installation of the studs and the sideboards, ran into a bit of an issue, in the sense that when I tightened the screws to make sure this was stable, it kind of shrank some of the dimensions of the booth that I initially had sketched out. So what we're going to end up doing is taking our 1x8s that we had initially just kept as scrap, and we're going to go ahead and cut those down to 4-foot width just to go ahead and nail them in as the roof. And that's going to be the last bit. After that, we're just going to rinse and repeat, stapling our egg crate foam onto the ceiling, onto the upper walls, onto the back walls to go ahead and make sure this is as soundproofed as possible. Of course, there's going to be some sound because of the shelf, but I'm going to try and soundproof that as best I can. There's not really a way to do it without putting foam on it, which is then going to make it very difficult to set my mic up and whatnot without like cutting a perfect circle out of the egg crate foam and setting my mic right in there. That's still going to interfere with the laptop, so I'm just not going to coat the shelf in egg crate foam, but I'm going to get every other surface in here so that we've got it set. What I ended up using were these fun little 1 by 1/2 inch screws for interior use construction. I popped them in, like I said, the backboard to mount it to the wall studs. I popped it in for the shelves I popped it in for the sideboards over here, as you can see. Little sparkles. From where I popped it into the studs, and I did the same here. And I had to do a little moving because unfortunately my room's dimensions are a little weird, and so this one's kind of right by the window, so I might just end up taking some paints someday and just painting over this with a nice little anime mural so that my neighbors outside the window can get a little culture, little weeb culture. You know, probably something related to the shows I enjoy. But yeah, this is pretty much the finished product. I'll go ahead and record one last time once the roof is on. That'll be part 4, and then I'll just go ahead and do like a roundabout view of the whole booth as best I can. My exterior camera unfortunately still does not work, so we'll have to do this in selfie mode still. See y'all in the next bit. And like that, we're finished. One roof on and completely done. Sort of, the last few steps are just kind of nitpicky. It's just how much coverage you want on your foam. This is going to be where I'm going to go ahead and end the series, but there are going to be a few more bits of foam that I'm going to go ahead and tack on that booth. So just go ahead and do a quick recap, make sure that we all got it. Step 1, you want to make sure that you get yourself some plywood or particle board, something that's just pliable and sturdy for your booth. Step 2, you want to make sure you get them cut to the right size. So go ahead and sketch out with a measuring tape your dimensions for the spot that you want to put your booth. Make sure that you account for your own body size. Like I said, I'm a big guy. So make sure that you've got that covered. Step 3, go ahead and make sure that you've got struts or supports that are going to hold up your booth. It's not always required to go ahead and have those 2x4 studs. I just personally prefer it because I like that extra stability. Again, big guy. I'm also kind of active when I act, so I want to make sure that when I'm moving about or when I'm draping things over to muffle out the sound that I'm not knocking this thing down. Step 4, get your egg crate foam. You can use spray-on adhesive, you can use hot glue gun, you can use just regular white glue. Just be careful with what you're doing. Me, I did a staple gun because I live in Georgia and it gets up to like 96 on a good day in the summer. So I wanted to be safe that I was covering all my bases. Let's see here. Step 5, go ahead and measure out the dimensions for your shelves because any good spot in there is going to need shelves. Unless, of course, you have stands for your mic and your phone that you will be reading your scripts off of. Sorry about that. I really don't like the back of my head. And then, of course, step 6, just go over it one more time. Make sure that you've got everything cut down to the right dimensions. Get everything assembled together. And from there, you're good to go. So like I said, prep, cut, adhese, adhese/stability is step 3. Step 4, definitely adhese. If you did stability, then adhese. If you didn't, then just double adhese. Make sure that you've got your foam on there tight. And then, of course, step 5 is just add your personal flourishes. You know, if you want to put a door on there, go for it. If you want to go ahead and put shelves in there like I did, go ahead and go for it. Just make sure that everything you do is structurally sound. And as reiterating again, all this just cost me like $120. Like, for the price of a Yeti stereo microphone, I went out and built a recording booth. So if that puts it into context for you, just keep that in mind. Like, if you've already got like a good recording mic, for the price of just a standard, you know, for a good quality USB mic, you could build a booth. If you've got the dimensions, you've got the room, go for it. Again, this is WalkmanExe. This has been DIY Phatdogs. I am very sweaty. I'm going to go clean. Peace out.